going back to Nikhil's goal of also trying to lose some weight or fat loss, that is a goal that I wanted to break down, and we together could describe how do you achieve a health and fitness goal like trying to lose weight and getting in shape and becoming fitter and becoming healthier, and what characteristics must you have to achieve it, what habits do you have in place. I thought if we describe it as a team together, it will really help someone listening to take on board some of these habits that they may not have down in their life right now, that they may not be thinking of, they may not implement. And maybe that's why if you're listening to this and someone who's struggling, maybe that's why you're struggling, because you haven't got the characteristics of someone who is healthy, someone who is physically fit, someone who regularly does work out, who regularly eats well. What do they do in their life that you can take into your life to achieve the goals that you have? Welcome to the Stronger, Fitter, Happier podcast. I'm your host Vin, and we are back. Sadie and Nikhil are joining me today.
Hello, everybody.
Super co-hosts.
Hey.
So yeah, we've been just talking off camera about all things going on in the world, but we won't, bring that up on this episode of the podcast. We're going to try and keep it happy and positive and keep you guys feeling stronger, fitter and happier, like the podcast is supposed to make you feel like. So I have given... Actually, I haven't even asked you guys how you're doing, what's going on. Let just for the people who do want to know how we are, or how Nikhil and Sadie are, how are you guys, what's going on in your lives?
Go for it, Sadie.
I'm all good. Can't complain today. I'm all good. What about you, Nikhil?
Yeah, I'm good. All the same. Did you guys finally start training? Did you start training last week, Sadie? Because I know that last podcast you said that you would. Yeah. Yeah,
started training again. Feels good. Back in the game.
Yeah.
What about you, Vinay? How are you?
Yeah, I'm on it as well with the training again. Back on last week, got in 4 sessions, went on daily walks. Well, I think it was daily walks. Managed to get the steps in for the week anyway. And yeah.
Perfect.
Getting back into the groove of things, I guess. How about you, Nikhil?
Yeah, back into the groove of it as well.
You created a little home gym, I've seen.
Yeah, just a little bit in the garage, but it's really cold in there as well, so I've got to work extra hard to warm myself up.
At least you can train in the garage. I got to try and train in my living room. It's just not ideal.
Yeah, I got a post about that coming out this week about working out at home and things like that. It's just not everyone's cup of tea in it. Like when you're training from home, I guess right now a lot of people are like put off about working out. I don't want to do it right now or whatever. Like it's just think of it as a temporary measure rather than a permanent thing, and just do what you can, make the most of it, and just try and work around it. So on this episode of the podcast, the guys are a bit clueless in terms of what's happening, what it's about, what we're talking about today. And what I've said to them is, rather than giving it away and them knowing exactly where the conversation is going to go or where I want it to go, I gave them a question. I asked them to have a think of something they're trying to achieve at the moment, and how will they basically get there? How will they achieve that goal? So let's put the question let's put it who we put on the spot first. So what we'll do, we'll put Nikhil on the spot. Nikhil, what is the thing that you're trying to achieve it right now, and how will you? We'll ask you how you're going to get there later.
Okay, so I got 2. I had a fitness related one and like a non-fitness related one.
Okay.
I'll go with the fitness related one just because we spoke about how we've got back into training and stuff like that. So the fitness related one is to go through a little bit of a fat loss phase. Nothing crazy, but short-term goal of maybe about 6 to 8 weeks is a fat loss phase.
Okay. What we can do, we'll come back to that. We can save that one for later, because that will probably help a lot of people later on in terms of what this podcast is going to be about. Because a lot of people probably have that goal, so it's probably a really good one to break down in detail. This is more of a quick fire part of the podcast. So like, what's the non-fitness related?
So the
fat loss shouldn't be fitness related, but yeah.
Yeah. The non-fitness related one is to do with, last year I managed to get to listening to audiobooks. This year I want to actually physically like sit down and read more. So like take some time out to read rather than just listen, and just sort of get away from screens, like reduce screen time, things like that. And the first step for me getting there would be to actually devote myself to reading a book. And there is no sort of like, I want to read X amount of books by the end of the year, or by 6 months time I should have completed 20 books. It's just to read maybe a page or a chapter a day, or 20 minutes a day or something like that, just starting off real small. And then once I pick up the momentum, hopefully I can set myself a number.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll come back to that. So I'm going to ask Sadie now, what are you trying to achieve at the moment? And how will you achieve that goal?
So my main goal at the moment, and again, this isn't fitness related or anything like that, is trying to get a mortgage. So that is like a big goal of mine, and moving out, like basically moving out and getting my own space, and working towards what am I going to do to be able to do that by the time that I want to do it, which is next year. Okay. So do you want me to go more into it or just say that?
Yeah. So how are you going to achieve that?
So basically, like I've worked out what my plan of action to get me to that goal by 2022. So it's more about money, how much I'm going to be saving each month, like looking at my budget, how can I make this work for me? And it's kind of just basically about making sure I can do what I need to do about saving each month. So to put it towards obviously my deposit. So yeah.
And how confident do you guys feel about achieving that goal? So Nikhil, do you feel like you're going to be someone who reads regularly?
Yeah, I think the way that I've set it up now is the way I've set up some things this year is very different to how I would have done it in the past. So
okay, so go into it. How are you going to be doing that then?
So I basically booked myself in, if that makes, I don't know if you've ever heard that sort of saying before, booking yourself in or checking in with yourself sort of thing. So literally I have put in the morning between sort of 9 and 9:30 is my reading time. So it's in my calendar, a notification goes off and I pretty much stop whatever I'm doing. Or like with time now, I just stop whatever I'm doing, and that's sort of the time for me to sort of just 20 minutes to read basically. So that's the way I've sort of done it.
And Sadie, how do you feel about your goal? Like, do you feel like it's something you're going to achieve?
Last year, I would have said I wasn't sure if I would achieve it or not. Given this, like, since it's been the new year, I've actually kind of like I've actually written down stuff. Like I've written down numbers. Like last year, I was just off my head saying, okay, this is what I need to do. Like if I put this away each month, I can probably get there. I don't want to be at that stage where I'm probably going to get there. What I've done is literally written down figures, written down like each month, this is what I have to do to kind of get to that goal. So I think I can visually see it in front of me now. So I think having it visually in front of me, having it written down is actually each month I can just tick off, have I done what I needed to do this month to get me to that goal? Yes. If I haven't, then obviously then I need to make sure I change something the following month. So I think for me, I am in a place right now that I'm a bit more, I have more confidence in myself that I can do it now, because I've not just kind of thought about it in my head. I've actually written the numbers down and kind of taken more of an action with that.
Okay, sounds good. So from what you guys are saying, it obviously you sound like you're clued up in terms of how you're going to achieve these goals and what you're going to do to get there. You have like a plan of action, and on the face of it, most people listening will be like, yeah, they'll succeed. Like they seem pretty clued up in terms of what they're going to do. There is one thing that maybe you have thought about, but a lot of people probably don't think about. And I'm going to bring it up now, but it's something that I feel if you get this bit down, you'll take your like success rate from like, there's an 80% chance of like achieving this goal that you have to more closer to 100% achieving your goal, or going from someone who's like 40% there, they have the goal, you guys have a plan of action. So people who have the goal in mind and are just stuck on the goal bit, this will take them to like where you guys are at in terms of like a lot more likely to achieve success, even if they don't have a roadmap. So that's how powerful I think changing your mindset when it comes to setting goals is. in this way. So I'm not gonna like act like I thought of it. I literally heard someone. It was a video. I can't remember who shared it or whatever, but they said this statement. So rather than focusing on like what you're trying to achieve, focus on who you need to become to achieve that goal. Because every goal that you have tends to like force you to become something new, because you can't be who you are now to progress to where you want to go. Do you see what I mean? So if you're an unfit person, to become a fit person, you can't just say, I'm going to start working out, even though that is technically how you become a fit person. You need to think about who that fit person is and how do they behave, what do they do regularly, and then evolve into that person. So what I'm trying to get at is like, so for Nikhil to become a book reader, he needs to not think of the goal as I need to start reading books. He needs to become the person who regularly reads. He needs to become a reader, basically.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? Like who describe that person? Do you get what I mean? Like, who's that person that reads books? It's someone who has free time. It's someone who values learning from books, or even being entertained by books. Who is that type of person? Do they watch TV? Probably not as much as someone who watches TV, for example. Who is that person? What does their morning routine look like? Are they organized? Are they on time to things? Probably. They probably have these characteristics to be able to fit something like reading a book in. They value education. They value all of those sorts of things. They probably already have books in their house. They have an area where they probably read. All these things are things that you should be considering when it comes to like setting a goal. Same thing with Sadie, like someone who wants to get a mortgage, or someone who wants to basically be financially stable in terms of like being able to afford that, tends to have really good budgeting skills. Or is on top of their mortgage, tends to have really good budgeting skills, tends to have good money spending and saving skills. They're not someone who potentially shops a lot, or they might shop a lot if they earn a lot, but if they have they need to basically have a good money management strategy. Is what I'm getting
exactly.
at.
Yeah.
So they need to be clued up as well. Like, what are the processes? All these sorts of things. So what are the characteristics of that person, and what habits must you have to be that person? And that's what I'm getting at. So we've obviously spoken about, like, it's very easy for you guys to think about it now, like, what habits do I need to build? What characteristics do I need to build to be that person in a year's time or 5 months time or whatever that is going to achieve these goals? And when I started thinking about it like that, it really made me, I don't know, it sparked some motivation as well, because you're like, it's very easy to achieve that goal when you think about it. So going back to Nikhil's goal of also trying to lose some weight or fat loss, that is a goal that I wanted to break down, and we together could describe how do you achieve a health and fitness goal, like trying to lose weight and getting in shape and becoming fitter and becoming healthier, and what characteristics must you have to achieve it? What habits do you have in place? I thought if we describe it as a team together, it will really help someone listening to take on board some of these habits that they may not have down in their life right now, that they may not be thinking of, they may not implement. And maybe that's why if you're listening to this and someone who's struggling, maybe that's why you're struggling, because you haven't got the characteristics of someone who is healthy, someone who is physically fit, someone who regularly does work out, who regularly eats well. What do they do in their life that you can take into your life to achieve the goals that you have? So, that being said, who wants to kick it off? Let's just start describing someone who basically is in shape, who's lost weight successfully, kept it off, is healthy, is fit, and is strong, and regularly trains, and is regularly active. And stress-free and stuff like that. Most people want to be when they set fitness goals. Nikhil, so what do you feel like is the number one characteristic or habit that they might have?
I don't know, I wouldn't place it as number one or anything, but maybe just, you know, someone that is regularly active, someone that has the ability to just move more than what they would have before, whether that be through playing regularly with kids, going for walks, taking the stairs instead of the lift, things like that, you know, just regularly follows those traits and habits. So just the move more sort of mentality, and essentially leads a little bit more of an active lifestyle.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the number one ones. So basically, like, someone who is quite active in general without focusing so much on exercise, tends to be in decent shape. Not decent shape, sorry, that's a wrong word to say. Tends to be someone who potentially burns a bit more calories, manages their nutrition better. You know those people that you just go, oh, like, how do you just lose weight, or like, so how do you not put on weight almost? You know those friends that people have, they're like, oh yeah, you can eat anything and you're just like naturally slim. Like, you know, where they go, oh, that person's just naturally slim or whatever. I think that is a big trait of those friends that people may have without realizing that person actually probably moves a lot more than like they just sit on their desk and they fidget all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And you only may see your colleague or whoever it is for like 8 hours at a time, or your friends for a couple of hours, and that naturally slim friend that you see for 2 hours at a time, rest of the day they're probably like really active or whatever it may be. So
yeah. And that's just, and you're talking about aside from training, right? Like, that's nothing to do with training. You're literally
no workouts like, involved in that.
Yeah,
just someone who naturally like may fidget a bit more, may, you know, take the stairs rather than the escalator. They may on the weekend play with their kids or go out for a walk, do a bit more activity rather than watching TV. Someone who doesn't watch TV in the evening, maybe they go for a walk, or they clean their house even, or, you know, there's someone who's just a bit more active or leads an active lifestyle. They do a bit more gardening. They have hobbies that may potentially push them to be a little bit more active, even though they might not be exercise related. So that's a really good one, actually. Anything, Sadie, that you'd like to add to that in terms of like any characteristics you have in mind?
I think someone that just eats and follows more of like a healthier kind of like, I was just about to say diet, and I hate saying that word, I don't know why. But you know what I mean? Like, just someone who most of their diet, if we say it as that word, is made up of like more like nutritious foods, and they follow more of like a healthier way of living in terms of their food.
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to food, I think we need to put a bit more clarity in terms of like, someone might be thinking, oh, someone who's just healthier. I think healthier, someone who probably eats less processed foods, potentially more nutrient dense foods, includes fruits and vegetables in their diet, potentially has more water in their diet. And when I'm talking about the word diet, I mean just the way they eat. So, you know, maybe gets less takeaways than the average person, limits them maybe to once every 2 weeks, once a week, that sort of thing. So all those people tend to cook more as well. So they cook their own food at home. Those are characteristics of someone who potentially, Sadie's saying, like, healthy diet. Doesn't mean they eat completely healthily, or they just don't eat chocolate and things like that. They just probably eat more. The percentage of the food that they eat tends to be homemade, generally like more less processed food. That way the calorie intake may be a little bit less.
Yeah. Exactly. And you covered that nicely.
Off the back of that as well, I think that individual that you just described as well has a lot healthier relationship with food. So they may not suffer with the intense guilt by having a meal out with their friends and things like that. And, you know, they don't feel like it's going to be an implication to their lifestyle or diet and things like that. So their all-round relationship with food in that sense is a lot better as well.
Yeah, and that's not something that someone can just fake, I guess. Yeah, you can't just be like, I'm going to become that person. Well, you can, but it will take a lot of work. We're not trying to put that lightly, that it takes a lot of years of undoing a bad relationship with food. Like, you know, I'm the same. Like, when there's snacks about, I will destroy the snacks if they're in sight. My partner can attest to that. There's a chocolate bowl there that I've been destroying, even though I don't necessarily eat chocolate like that. It's just
I was gonna say you don't really eat chocolate.
no, but do you know when sometimes food is at eyesight, like you just go at it.
So true.
People who are generally less snacky or like have better relationship with food, they only eat when they necessarily need it, tend to probably don't have like things like chocolates out and about on the worktops in the house and things like that, or they probably maybe even have less of it in the house in the first place. They get it purposefully, so when they actually want it, they may go order it, or they get it, or they eat it specifically, not just mindlessly throughout the day kind of thing, like how I've been doing recently to get through the Christmas chocolates and stuff that have been left out. But yeah, you get my point.
Yeah,
they may have like more fruit on the side
sitting there. Yeah,
and more healthier snacks that are available to them, and they may eat more consciously as well. So things like they eat 3 times a day very specifically, and they have more of a regular routine with food. They may eat similar foods all the time. They may, like I said already, cook more. They may eat more family meals. They may eat less in front of the TV. All those healthy relationships that build a better relationship with food, that don't necessarily promote binge eating or eating with relation to feelings and emotions. Do you see what I mean? They may have a different process of how they deal with a stressful day.
Yeah.
They may be someone who goes for a walk. I don't know, maybe even watches TV, or like watches a movie, or puts on a good podcast, or reads a book, that sort of thing, as opposed to like going, I'm going to eat a chocolate to make me feel better after a rubbish day. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Like, I personally don't think, unless you're out of control with it, like it's the same with like having a drink after a tough day. There's nothing wrong with that until it is something wrong with that. If that makes sense. Like, if you're in control and like the alcohol's not in control of you, then there's nothing wrong with that kind of thing. But it very quickly becomes out of control, isn't it? And I think that's what happens with most people who use food as a mechanism to control emotions. It often leads to the emotions, like the food controlling their emotions as opposed to them controlling their emotions through food. If that makes sense.
I think kind of what you said there, when you said about swapping, like not eating in front of the TV and maybe eating at like those sort of things. I think another characteristic we could add is maybe like that kind of person does more things that they enjoy, like, and so that they lead a less stressful life. Like, so they do more things, like go out for the walk and read that book if that's what you like doing, like, all those sort of things. So I think that's another important characteristic to add there.
Yeah. And I think that one comes hand in hand. So it's like often you find people who do things that they enjoy more. You think that came first before, like, so say like you're like someone who's got less stress tends to be someone who's happier, who's got a better job, who's got like a job that they're happy with, so not a better job. They do things they enjoy, and that's why they're less stressed. But it may be the other way around, like because they're doing things like they don't have a job that stresses them out, that they actually love doing, because they have like fitness in their life, they have more activity in their life, they may spend time more outdoors, or they sleep better, that's why they may be less stressed rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
So they manage their stress better is a really good one as well. So we've come up with a lot of nutrition ones, like healthier relationship with food and the way they process their nutrition. They just generally eat a little bit better. They move more. They're more physically active. They have more stress management tools. They have things that make them happier in their life. Those are all really good ones. How about some specific ones now? Like someone who's thinking, oh yeah, these are really good ones, but I don't think that's going to help me lose weight. They will, but anything else that you feel like would help someone live a stronger, fitter, healthier and happier lifestyle?
Well, in tying it in a little bit with the like active lifestyle, I think regularly working out, regularly training, like it's not just obviously about like moving more throughout the day and stuff like that, that is very important. But kind of narrowing it down a little bit, like that person would regularly work out, whether that's 2 times a week, 5 times a week, or whatever suits them, but they train regularly.
Well, I think that's a good one. I think it's too broad. So when you think of someone who doesn't work out, they're thinking, okay, the goal is I need to work out. Because we've made an original goal very, very brief, so we can add a lot of habits in. But if you just set the goal as someone who's not working out right now wants to make exercise regular so that they can become fit and strong, the first step is to make exercise regular. So then you need to look at who is someone who works out regularly and what habits do they have and what characteristics do they have. So when you take that in example, someone who works out regularly is someone who probably makes time for exercise and prioritizes it, sees it of value, and they enjoy it. So first thing, they need to find something they enjoy. Second thing probably is they need to make some time in their schedule. They need to value what they're about to do. They need to know the benefits and know what it's going to do for them. And then it's like actually fitting it in and organizing their day and making a routine and structure and habits that allow them to work out. Someone who regularly works out may tend to put on workout clothes first thing in the morning if they work out in the morning. Someone who works out in the evening will have some sort of program or plan, or even if it's not specific, they may know that they're going to go for a 20-minute bike ride or a 10-minute jog, or they're going to do a specific workout at that time and when they're going to do it, and they know that they're going to do it at 7 p.m. and not just sometime in the evening after dinner. They know that they're going to do it at a specific time, because then that makes it allows it for them to be regular. So that's a kind of, I guess, someone is who's regularly working out needs to think of in that sense. Do you guys have any other ones in terms of like specific to fat loss? Then maybe someone who finds it easy to lose weight, what habits do they have in place that makes it easy for them to lose weight? So if you go silent here, I think I'm going to have to get new coaches who work for Body.
So then maybe going back to nutrition, they follow a calorie deficit. Like they're obviously if that's what they're doing and fat loss is the goal, then obviously they're eating less than what they're burning each day. Okay,
so that's a really good point. So that's the goal. So I know goal is the objective. The objective is to lose weight. The process is to get into a calorie deficit. So what are the habits and characteristics of someone who gets into a calorie deficit then?
Cool.
Go on, Nikhil, go on.
I was just going to say someone that prioritizes protein as well in their diet. So if you're getting really specific, so we spoke about the things like have a nutritious diet, have a balanced diet, have a good relationship with food. But if you're talking real specifics, someone that makes an effort to include some protein in their diet as well would be a real good way to get yourself in a calorie deficit and adhere to one in terms of satiety and things like that. And it will complement training as well. If that's sort of your goal.
No, that's literally what I mean, like specific things that someone can do. So like someone who regularly is in a calorie deficit will probably likely eat things that satisfy them. So one being protein, two could be they eat more vegetables and less processed sources of food. Like we've already spoke about that, because that helps fill them up for the volume of calories. Like eating a Snickers bar, maybe 250 calories. Eating some, like a stir fry with some noodles, could be 250 calories as well, and it could fill up the whole bowl or plate or whatever you want to call it, and take 25 minutes to eat, whereas a Snickers bar could be done within 5 minutes. So that's the kind of difference. And I'm not saying Snickers bars are bad and that's why you're not losing weight. It's just what are you consuming mostly? Will make a huge difference.
It's the choices as well that they're making. So like you could easily choose the Snickers bar, like, do you know what I mean? But you're choosing the food that's going to fill you up more and support the goal.
Yeah.
Knowing when to pick your battles.
Probably prioritize health as well.
Knowing when to pick your battles is a good one as well. So I think people that successfully lose weight or are on a successful fat loss phase sort of have the I don't know what the right word for it is, but have the prejudgment in their mind to make, right, this is the battle that I want to pick right now. I'd rather not sort of have this very calorific meal now because I fancy something a little bit later on. So it's almost like pre-planning to a certain extent and having some sort of foresight into, the potential days are coming, or at least the hours ahead in the day, rather than being really in the moment.
Almost like a I can't have it all attitude.
Yeah.
Like if they like, let's say they ate something really, like, you guys gave that, or maybe it was me, but someone spoke about it earlier in the podcast about the friend who just seems naturally slim. So like I've seen it a lot of the time where people say, you eat like this and how do you always lose weight? People say it about my partner, or like Sadie, your partner as well, like Leon will get it a lot, like, oh, how are you eating like loads of cookies and junk food and still losing weight? And when you look at the rest of their diet, they've basically done what Nikhil's done, and maybe not consciously, maybe it's subconsciously or just by accident even. They may not have eaten, like, so they may get like a Big Mac and large fries and a Coke in front of you, but because they ate that, they're probably like, oh, I probably ate a bit too much earlier in the day, I'm gonna skip a meal, or I'm gonna eat a bit less here, or tomorrow I'm gonna eat a lot less, or and they may not be consciously doing that, they may not be specifically doing that, but you being someone who doesn't have that as an ingrained habit may need to consciously do it. You may need to monitor your calorie intake for you to be able to do it. You may need to count your calories, for example, to be able to do something like that. Yeah. And until it becomes a routine and a habit, and then you can be that person who basically technically eats what they want and still kind of loses weight, I guess, or maintains your weight. Yeah.
It's like what we say sometimes to a lot of our members, like if they're tracking and using those kind of tracking apps for their nutrition, it's not something you have to do forever, but it's there to build those habits, get that kind of set in stone. And then you, like you just said, Vinay, like you naturally end up doing those things and eating that way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think someone who successfully loses weight is not someone who actually gets to the goal, but also gets to the goal and maintains that goal. And to be able to do that, they don't have an on-off mentality. Do you see what I mean? So someone who's successfully in control of their weight and manages their weight well, whether like, so they say they put on a bit of weight and they want to lose it, or they want to lose weight for a holiday and then keep at that steady weight because they've gained weight over a Christmas period, for example, they will typically then keep the habits that they had throughout the nutrition. So they may not eat the amount they ate when they were trying to lose weight, but all the things that generally got them there will be sustained. So like managing to include more protein in their diet, eating more fruits and vegetables, that sort of thing will all still remain, and not just go, I'm going to go back to the way I was eating before. Yeah. And you have to take into consideration as well, like a lot of people have that mindset. This is not related to the habit or characteristics, but just while they're on the topic, like if you're trying to lose weight right now, keep it in your mind that you're not always going to have to eat really low amounts of, well, not that you have to eat really low amounts of calories, but you're not going to have to feel the way you do right now with, things like you're not going to have to potentially deal with hunger, deal with being in a calorie deficit, all these things. Because once you do get to the goal that you want to be and you're happy with the way you look and the level of body fat you have, then you get to maintain your weight. And when you maintain your weight, you generally tend to eat a little bit more. And you get to eat at a level that you are then sustaining your weight. And then what happens is with the hormones and things like that in your body, you tend to feel satisfied. You don't feel hungry. You don't feel like I need to eat more food and that sort of thing, isn't it? So, yeah. There's one that people often like overlook, and then they're like, oh, can't be asked to do with this anymore. I'm going to just throw it, go off the plan, or forget about it, kind of thing. So are there any others that you guys can think of in terms of like specific characteristics and stuff that someone may need to embed into their life? I think there's one that we definitely haven't covered.
Are we going back into specifics, like with the protein, the veg?
Yeah, so we can go with like we can keep it on specifics, or we could just talk generally as well, that are not related to nutrition and things like that. That someone that we can go through. The goal is to get to weight loss or whatever and become fit, strong and healthy. But then what do they need to do? And then who is that person that does that? So one thing that someone may need to do is, I guess, sleep well.
Yeah, I was going to say that one. Yeah, sleep.
And so then I'll leave you to describe that. Then who is someone who sleeps well? Someone who doesn't have children.
Yeah, most probably. Someone that sleeps well, I would say, that gets a decent, 7 to 9 hours an evening, has a solid bedtime routine or a solid set time that they go to sleep, a time that they wake up. Completely understand it's not going to be like that sort of 7 days a week. You have some leeway here and there for weekends and social events and whatever. Like, it's not always going to be like that. But the majority of the time, their sleep is sort of regimented and routine to a certain extent, where it's very much in a nice routine.
Absolutely. I think what you have to definitely with the routine of sleep, like that sleep routine is really important. But another thing to add to that is the sleep hygiene as well.
Yeah.
And what I mean by sleep hygiene is things like, what are you doing to trying to have a good quality sleep? So things like dark rooms, no phones, they have a process before bed. They may not watch TV, like they may not have a TV in their room. Little things like that, like Sadie's got one right behind her.
Oh yeah, it never goes on. No,
I know. Because you're actually someone who's got a decent sleep routine. Like you like when you describe someone who sleeps well, it's probably Sadie. Like doesn't have any children, so she doesn't have to wake up in the middle of the night.
I think what you said about having the routine, like even if I'm not feeling tired, I've set myself, like I have to kind of, even if I'm just relaxing and laying down, like I have that set time that I have to be in bed by, like just chilling. Like people know, like even ask me, like people go, "Oh, do you want to come out on Sunday?" No, I got to go to bed.
What is your like half an hour before bed routine, Sadie? What do you do?
So like, well, I'm quite bad in terms of like, I'm on my phone before I go to bed. Like I know that's quite bad for me, but it doesn't stop me from falling asleep. So I literally have a set time, 9 o'clock. Like I will be laying in bed, the lights are off. Like people will come in and talk to me, my lights are off. So I'm starting to relax even though I'm on my phone.
By 9?
And then by 9. Yeah. So literally I'm in bed by 9. During the week this is, not obviously on the weekend. I think like you mentioned before, like I have a bit of leeway obviously on the weekends, but during the week in bed by 9, dark room, and I keep it cool. And now I think I saw this somewhere else the other day, for good quality sleep, the room should be cool. And I really like a cool room because I feel like that helps me sleep. So whether that's my fan or the windows open, I keep the room cool, and I always do that whether it's winter or summer. And and that's it. Like, I just think it's having that routine and the set time, and I know what I can do to give me that kind of downtime and start relaxing. Yeah,
I think it's one that's really important, like a wind down routine before bed. And the cool room is 15 to 18 degrees is what you want to keep it at for optimal sleep. And the reason for that is you'd rather wrap up and be like, you need a cool room, warm body is what, because to fall asleep, you have to reduce your internal body temperature. So your body has to naturally try to reduce its temperature. And if you've got the central heating on and you're in a hot room, while you may like it, like just psychologically, your body's physiological needs do not. So you will not have a good, deep quality sleep. And the phones thing, like Sadie, you may fall asleep. Your REM cycle can be disrupted by light. Yeah. So in your room, if you have like a little green or blue blinking light on the TV, or like from your alarm clock or whatever it is, cover it. Like we like,
you used to do that?
Yeah, like we have a plug socket, and I've put black tape over, like, because of the light is green. I've just put black tape over it. Red lights only in the bedroom. No pun in. Nothing. That's not to set the mood. It's literally to help you sleep. But yeah, and also like activities you do in the room as well should literally be for sleep, and the other one.
We're all adults here.
Yeah, but what I mean is focus on sleep in the bedroom rather than other things. Like someone who has a work desk in their bedroom, I know obviously you may not have the luxury of working somewhere else in your house, but if you can, don't work on your bed, for example.
Yeah, I
don't
agree.
watch TV on your bed. Don't maybe use your phone at night on the bed to help you fall asleep. Do it on a chair in the room and then go to bed to sleep. That way your body has an association with the bed and the pillow and stuff like that of sleep.
Yeah.
And you may think that that's like, whoa, that's weird, but like it actually helps. Like it really does help. Like we play white noise for our children to fall asleep. So it's like basically like rain sounds or whatever. And because like my daughter sleeps in our room, like my youngest daughter now, and my older daughter used to sleep in our room, and even through the baby monitor we hear it. We could like we are like associated that with our sleep as well. So when I hear rain sounds anyway, I tend to get a bit tired and sleepy. Yeah. So it's because it's like an association to that sound associates sleep to me now.
Yeah.
So it's the same, like that sort of thing, creating that sort of association with your bed will really, really help. And the reason why we're going on about sleep, someone who tends to have good quality sleep and sleeps the right amount tends to have the most amount of energy in the day. People who have more energy in the day tend to have more energy to do things like work out. People who sleep better tend to eat better, and that's not because of a association of they prioritize health. I mean, there's probably some stats on that, but what I mean is you literally produce different hormones. So you've got two hormones, the hunger hormone. Nikhil taught me this one like in terms of how to remember it. Ghrelin is your hunger hormone. It causes you to be hungry. Leptin is a hormone that causes you to feel satisfied. We all produce it. We all produce it in different amounts though. And sleep is something that directly affects this. So if you're someone who sleeps enough, you will tend to produce a good amount of leptin, an optimal amount, and an optimal amount of ghrelin to basically have a yin and yang relationship to tell you when to eat and tell you when to feel satisfied. The problem with low sleep, and I'm talking about like, people who get less than 7 hours, low amounts like 6 and 5 and that sort of thing. Everyone's different, but most people tend to not do too well when they get less than 7 hours sleep. Is your leptin goes down and your ghrelin goes up, meaning you feel hungry in the day and you feel less satisfied even after eating. So you're someone who you say you're someone like, I just crave things after I have a poor quality sleep. It's not your fault. You're not like broken. Your body's telling you to do these things. And the other thing is like you have lower levels of concentration. So even when you are working out or you're trying to, be strong and be like adhere to the plan, I'm going to be strong. Like you're going to have less levels of that. You're going to have less like patience, all these things that may be required for you to go, I'm going to work out today. Or I'm going to eat well today. You're probably just fighting against it with a low quality sleep. And I'm sure there's like some sleep experts who probably add to that of why it's so important for someone on another level. But those are the ones I can think of from my head. Is there any other ones that you guys can think of in terms of like, we've mentioned things like water, types of foods that you may be eating. I know we've kept it quite broad in this podcast today. We haven't been very, very specific, but I'm sure if you're listening by now, like you would have taken at least one thing that you feel like you can add to your life. So there's silence. So I'm going to actually talk because like I have been throughout most of this podcast.
I can't think.
No. It's just one that I just literally came to my mind because of what I said is they probably don't do too much as well. So you've probably heard it before if you listen to this podcast. I have this analogy of like a full plate. Now, I'm not talking about food. I'm talking about your time clock. So someone who's got a full plate will have like, there's no more room on the plate. So when people go, I'm going to start working out and you've already got a full plate, you add to the top of it. And obviously what happens is if you do that to a plate in real life with food, what happens is stuff falls off the plate. You can't just keep stacking and stacking and stacking on top of the plate. Things will start to fall off the plate. It'll get very messy. And that's what happens in your life. It gets very messy. You get very stressed out. You have too much on your plate. Get overwhelmed. So what you need to do is look at your plate as a 24-hour clock. if you add something in, it needs to fit into the segments of the hour in the day across the 24 hours. If you want good sleep, takes up a good eighth of your plate or whatever. Like, sorry, that maths is terrible there. It's not an eighth of your plate. But it takes up an eighth of your plate in terms of not hours, but just generally over that 24-hour period. It may take up a significant amount of your plate. Then, let's say you want to work out. It may take up a little section of the plate again. You need to go to work, a section of the plate. You need to spend time with the loved ones, a section of the plate. You need to do this for the house, section of the plate. You can't just keep adding and adding and adding. Things need to be taken away, things need to be added in. So time management is a really, really big one. Not doing too much is what I'm trying to get at. Is probably something that someone who successfully loses weight, successfully manages to work out often, successfully, sleeps enough and has a good relationship with the people around them and feels not stressed out and overwhelmed is someone who has that down to a T. Anything you guys like to add to that?
No, that's a good one.
I was just going to add, like you were saying, basically just adding on prioritizing your time as well. So a lot of the time people do say they don't have time to do, like, say, work out. But then where can you prioritize your time? Okay, rather than sitting down in the evening when you watch half an hour of TV, that can be a half an hour where you could work out. So I think prioritizing the time that you already have is really important.
Yeah, so that's a practical way of doing what I was saying in theory.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's how you manage your plate a bit better with time.
Right?
You take away the things that are not priority and add the things that you are priority, that are basically driving you forward towards the goal that you're trying to set for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
I've started to treat it like an appointment, so as if it was a dentist appointment at 3:30, for example. You wouldn't miss it because it's a dentist appointment, and whatever you had going on will always get, like your work day, for example, you would take out time to go to the dentist appointment, same way for like a training session or whatever. Just treat it as an appointment. And often we panic that, things won't get done, or if I I better finish this before I just get on with my training and things like that. But if you sort of set aside the time and have it booked in and things like that, you can always come back to what you were doing before as well.
And also, to do with that one, a lot of people feel like, you said the appointment thing about I might not have time to get all the things done if I set such a rigid routine or rigid structure. What you should maybe then think about is what's important now. So it's an acronym that I literally remind myself of every day since I read the book Essentialism, or listened to the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown. He talks about this acronym WIN, and it means what's important now. And ask yourself that before you do something. So when you have a to-do list, or you have lots of things to do, what's important now? Like, what's most important that needs to be get done out of all the things that you're doing, and then focus on that. Like, when I'm spending time on my daughter, what's most important now? Giving her my full attention, not answering an email. Yeah. Even though that may be important, it may not be as important as what is the most important with her. Do you see what I mean? So it allows you to really narrow in that focus and not become so overwhelmed with everything. And what's going to drive you forward to the goal that you're trying to live, but you need to have a purpose first.
But on the
if your
flip
purpose
side,
is to have a really good relationship with your family and stuff, what's important now, in the evening, won't be going to quickly check what's for work. It may just be spending time with your other half.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that I've been reminding myself of, so that I get the essentials done that drive us closer to whatever the purpose of the goal is and the purpose of life is, and not become so overwhelmed. A little bit of a detour off topic. Anything else you guys want to add to that?
No, nothing from me.
I think it's a really good point to end on.
Yeah,
it's a really good, definitely one that I think will get a lot of people thinking and generally getting forward with. So if you're someone who is listened to that in full, try to think of one thing that we've mentioned that you have, that you're not necessarily doing already in your life, that you could do, but not just do easily and do for good. Because if you can do that, then you're definitely going to get to where you want to be. Stop adding things in your life that don't necessarily add value, don't necessarily move you forward to the goal that you have, and aren't necessarily things that you're genuinely going to find that you're able to stick to. If you can see yourself doing it for the rest of your life, then add it to your life. Otherwise, don't. And if you are going to add something you necessarily don't want to do for the rest of your life, make sure it adds value and brings you closer to what you want to be, if that makes sense. But when you answer that honestly, if you want to be that person, you want to go towards it, what gets you to that goal is something you're probably going to have to do for the rest of your life. Do you see what I mean? Like, Sadie, your goal of like wanting to get to buy a house and stuff, and you know, the mortgage and all of that stuff, the money management stuff that you have to practice now is something that you're probably going to have to practice even then, because after that there's other finances that
exactly.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like with the house, like the upkeep, the just generally like the healthy financial habits that you're going to put in place this year are generally habits that you have to keep your house. Otherwise you probably lose it. If you can't pay your bills and that. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, it's that point I said, I guess I was almost thought like, no, maybe it's wrong, but no, it is right. It's definitely something you have to do for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's true. I think what you were saying actually before, just quickly, is about what's important now is something I don't look at things that way, and it's definitely something I need to do going forward. So yeah, at least I can take something away from this as well.
What do you mean? You don't look at it?
No, like I don't always look at, like when I'm thinking I've got so much to do, I don't look at, okay, what is important right now? Like sometimes I do get a bit like stressed and overwhelmed with, okay, well, I've got so many things I think I've got to do today or this week. I think it's a really good way to start looking at things, take a step back, look at what's important right now. And that will obviously help me not be as stressed, not like manage my stuff like more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's literally why we had that meeting we did earlier in the week. So something me and Sadie spoke about was clarity around her purpose within Body and Beyond. So it was like, what is her number one priority and what is she supposed to focus on? And it is quite broad, but there are ways that she's going to achieve that goal. It was just to give her a real sense of purpose and focus and not feel overwhelmed within her career. Because, you know, like, it's like when you have anyone who you work with, you get loads of different things that you're getting added to your plate, or loads of different things that you feel like you have to contribute towards that are going on within a company or organization or whatever. But when you have a clear sense of purpose within there, you can almost ask that question again, what's most important now? And you can say no to things as well. Like, for example, say Nikhil said, oh, like, Sadie, can you help me out with this thing? Sadie's like, no, like, that's not part of my clear focus. You're going to have to speak to Vinay or do it yourself kind of thing. But it allows you to say no and yes as well. But when you don't have that clear purpose, you don't necessarily have that yes and no, you can't generally drive that forward. And what really helped me think about that was that Essentialism book. I really recommend it to anyone who's trying to find like a bit more sense of peace and clarity in their life, because it really gets you thinking about these sorts of things, about what's important, where you want to go, how do you want to live your life, loads of things. Yeah, so on that note, I hope you take something away from this podcast. Definitely lots and lots and lots of stuff to think about. If you have anything for future episodes, anything you'd like us to discuss, hit us up. Let us know at podcast@bodybeyond.co.uk. Otherwise, we will catch you on the next episode. Over and out, guys.